Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV, where we believe that you have the potential to be a giant in your own world. Sit on back, relax, pull out a pen, sip on some coffee, and here we go. We're going to learn about the art of referral marketing. It's time to wake up the inner giant. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV and a Tribe of Giants and the 12 Journeys, which is our coaching program that we do. It's SG groups. We are, I think we're going to put out our SG group here for just about another month or so, month and a half, and put a few more bodies into it so we can have a bigger impact on those people that attend. If there's something about a group where you get vulnerable and share, and we're excited about it. And I'm here with my co-host and better half of the show, Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls, and also the co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV, a Tribe of Giants, and the Sum Gigante 12-week journey coaching program. And you can see the scrolling 12 journeys coaching.com. If you want to follow us, which we hope you do, because we like having more giants with us on this crazy train. So go to giantsandsmalls.com. You can see all the things that we're doing there. A great place to find some community is Facebook, a Tribe of Giants on Facebook, and you can follow us on YouTube on these shows. Wake Up with Giants TV. Hit the alert button too, so you know when we go live every single dang time. And what other? We've got we're part of a cohort. That's what I'm calling it anyway. The Y Fellowship, and that is with Amanda Monk, Kelsey Monk, and Brandon. And they do. We're getting together and we're going to change some men's lives because most of us men are taught to be tough, be strong, not show your emotions, and then when we need to, we don't know where to go. So that's something that we're working on in the Y Fellowship. So follow us. You'll see some of our posts throughout our social media, and that is at the end of September, the 29th through the 1st of October. So what else do we got, Nick, that I'm missing?
That's it right now. I'm just noticing that StreamYard is struggling to connect with Facebook. So you'll want to watch this on YouTube. So I'm going to post that here in the comments. Actually, maybe I won't, Ryan. Maybe I have to copy and paste what's in there won't work. So yeah. So it looks like the Facebook is down, but YouTube is up. So we will stream this back over. If you're not able to see us live on YouTube, that's where you catch us. Not sure what's going on there, but I'm going to jump in.
Technical glitches create the best shows. So
yeah, they do. Yeah. So here we go, man. I'm going to introduce Dan Rawls. So Dan Rawls, at just age 23, Dan climbed to the top position of National Marketing Director with a leading $17 billion direct sales company. So it's pretty young. Over the past 25 years, he's not only helped hundreds achieve a six-figure income through his unique strategies, but has also spearheaded initiatives across franchise companies in 7 states, generating a staggering $15 million in gross revenue. As the founder of over 125 business groups, Dan's influence is undeniable. His dynamic energy, combined with his unparalleled expertise and connections, referral marketing, and prospecting, sets him apart in the industry. And if that wasn't enough, he's also a Wall Street Journal #1 best-selling author with his contribution to Masters of Success. As he continues his global mission, Dan is on the lookout for influential leaders who share his passion for making a difference. So if you're someone who's always connecting people, an entrepreneur or at heart, or a professional with significant experience, especially in leadership, here I'm having to struggle reading. That's awesome. Dan is someone you'd want to connect with. So now, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode and discover the secrets behind living a giant life. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, good morning, y'all.
Good morning. It's good to have you here. We love to dive into your story, so we always go back in time a little bit to a time in your life where you were not what you are today. Prior to this, there was some other version of you, somebody you thought you were, and we'd love to explore that. Is there a point in your life where you'd like to begin your story?
Sure. Well, thank you for the introduction. Sometimes when I get introduced, it's hard to write your own bio. I mean, the bottom line is it's hard to be self-serving and look at me and the spotlight on me, because I like to put the spotlight on other people. And so I was kind of getting excited as you were reading that bio, thinking, wow, maybe
who is this guy? It's like, this guy sounds great.
maybe I have accomplished a few things, but for me, I think one of the things that was really a pivotal point for me was in college. I walked on to play football, and my freshman year, the person in that position, he actually went on to the NFL, and he played in the NFL for over 15 years. And so I was kind of a scrub. Being a second string punter is kind of like fourth string quarterback, if you know anything about that. They wear the baseball hat and they carry the clipboard on the sideline. And so at the summer before my junior year, I got a call from our head coach, and he said, you've always wanted to play. And he says, now's your chance. You need to really up your game because we start school in 2 weeks. And I went to a kicking camp with the starting kicker for University of Tennessee in Knoxville, where I lived at the time. That's not where I went to college. And this kicking camp, instead of saying, hey, let's work on this and this, let's tweak a few things, they said, we want you to forget everything you know about punting a football, and you're going to do it this way. And we're going to show you, because we've placed people in colleges and scholarships and NFL. And it derailed me. And I went back to school 2 weeks later for 2 days and started in August. And I was awful. Like, it looked like I hadn't kicked a football the entire summer, and I hadn't lifted one weight. And it was self-sabotaging for me. And I just thought, I wasn't blaming it on the camp, but I mean, I was pretty good in my own right. So long story short, I had a chance to earn a scholarship, and in 10 days I got beat out. And, I stayed on the team all the way through graduation, and my competitor, our starting punter, my senior year, I went to to look at internships at this career fair in Asheville, North Carolina. And I got back to the dorm on Friday afternoon, and my teammates were like, hey, coach has been trying to get in touch with you. Like, you're playing tomorrow. And I was like, what? This is the biggest game in the history of the Southern Conference, our school. What are you talking about? Well, our starting punter had a health issue, and he couldn't play. And I was like, wow. So we didn't have cell phones back then. So I ran over to the field house, and he said, I want you to suit up and have dinner with the team and everything. And he said, you're probably going to start tomorrow. And my teammate, another teammate, was the starting kicker, who he went in the NFL as well. And long story short, basically, it was third down. It was the largest game. It was on TV in multiple states. And it was third down, and we were like way back. And the coach looked at me and looked at Bjorn, my teammate, who was an amazing kicker and went in the NFL, because he had the confidence in him because he was a starter. And I wasn't, I'd never played varsity in college. And the coach grabbed my face mask and said, go. And I went in, and our long snapper in the 3 years I've been on the team had never had a bad snap ever. Never. And he snapped the ball. I don't know how far over my head it was, but if I didn't catch it, it would have landed in the end zone. And I jumped. My skin turned different color. I jumped as high as I could jump, and I caught the ball. And
White man could jump in that scenario.
Yeah. I thought of the movie White Men Can Jump.
You got to pull that in. Yeah.
And I remember it like it was 2 months ago. And it was a 60-yard punt. And it was my first punt where like I blew it, my self-esteem, my self-image. I didn't know about books and personal development and self-help and just all the tools that are out there in the world and that were out there even then back in the 80s. And I outkicked the coverage, and the returner returned it probably, I don't know how far he returned it, 30 yards or something. But, you know, I was stoked. I was like, I can actually do this. And it was the homecoming. It was, you know, 3 more games and our season ended, and then I graduated. And that was a turning point for me, Nick. I mean, I'll just tell you, Ryan, it was just my self-esteem was crushed because I had an opportunity that I felt that I was good enough. And I got beat out like that by a teammate in 10 days, and I lost a scholarship. And so, you know, I was kind of embarrassed for my parents, for me, towards my parents, like, and you know, I carried that for a long time in my career. I'll tell you, I carried that. In fact, I never told my son that story until last year. I chose to not tell him that story until last year. And so that was a pivotal point for me of self-sabotaging. And just like you're reading my bio, and I'm thinking I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy. And, you know, I've always wanted to be a team player, but I never felt like I was good enough. So that was a pivotal point for me that I could have blamed it on the kicking camp. I could have blamed it on their strategies and their teachings. But I was pretty good, and I just kind of lost my mojo, but it was the wrong 10 days to do it because I had the opportunity to win a scholarship in Division I AA, and I didn't play, and I didn't really play. Other than that, I played the biggest game in the history of the Southern Conference back then. So that was a big deal for me.
Well, it's interesting how our inner world creates our outer world. So who we think we are on the inside is what affects the outside. And so going into that idea of you thought you were something and you had these insecurities that came up, and, you know, trying to navigate those and then finding out, oh, I do have the power. What is your process for getting through that? So how do you awaken to things and recognize that you have a certain way of being, and how important is it to do that? Does that make sense?
It does. It's, you know, we're our own worst critic, right? I mean, just the reality of it is some people have egos bigger than Texas, and they love the spotlight, and they love all the, hey, me. That's really not me. It's just not my character, my style. It's not really who I am.
Are the rest of us just stubborn? Some have egos and the rest of us are stubborn.
Well, there's a difference in confidence and arrogance. Yeah. When I talk about ego versus confidence. And so for me, Nick, your inner self, it just shattered my belief in me that I mean, how could just a little thing like that, like a college game, a college sport, just affect the whole beginning of my life, my career, dating, girlfriends, whatever it was. And, you know, it was self-sabotaging, but I caused it. And I wish I could go back and turn the clock back. And I really wish that I would have known about 3 or 4 books. Not that a book's going to change your life, but when you're 20 years old, you have an opportunity to shape your mindset. And if I would have known about personal development, believing in myself, it would have been a game changer, and I would have earned the scholarship and I would have played. And so our inner self, when I say we're our own worst critic, you know, the cobbler's kids never have shoes. Why? Because he's so busy making shoes for everyone else. He's so busy serving everyone else in a non-self-serving way. So that would be my response.
Yeah. Do you think there would ever be a time that we wouldn't say, if I would have only known what I know now back then? Because even if you knew what you knew now back then, you would get to where you are now. You'd say, I wish I knew what I knew now back then. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. In fact, I shared something a month or so online, and it's an acronym that I learned over 30 years ago. CANI, C period, A period, N period, I period. Constant and never ending improvement. And, you know, we constantly, it's not like I'm looking for the next book to change the idea. The principles that are in place are already there, but it's a lot of us, Nick, that are, you know, my age anyway. There's a lot of people that have achieved great things in their life, but we've gotten away from what we once knew. We stopped doing what we did to get us to where we were and or where we are. And it's the basics. It's like, this is a football. It's, you know, it's the basics of making phone calls, following up with people, having appointments if you're in marketing or sales, or you have your own business, or you're cultivating relationships. And we get away from that because we're looking for the what? We're looking for the next shiny object, the next podcast. We think that, you know, the 21-year-old Olympian is going to, you know, just change our world all of a sudden because of what he did or she did. And, you know, there's no shortcut. I mean, the shortcut is hard work, and the shortcut is being pleasantly persistent. And I've kind of, it's not like I have a brand with that, Nick, but whenever people would introduce me, say something, tell us something no one knows about you. And, you know, I'm pleasantly persistent. I'm not bothersome. And there's a difference. There's a difference in being pleasantly persistent. And so as you talk about giants and smalls, I've watched countless of your videos over the time that you guys have been doing this.
We are pleasantly persistent.
You know, it's taken 2 years for us to be able to make today happen. And I've just been butterfly giddy about it. I woke up crazy early this morning, just super anxious about it. But, you know,
it's interesting too, like, hang on to that real quick, but the idea that things don't always go as planned either. So I want you to pull this back into what you're going to share here. But, you know, looking across the board on the top of our platform here, to see 5 of our platforms are not streaming live right now. Right. And even my fingers are disappearing on the screen. It's amazing. You learn to work with what is in life. Right. And it doesn't always go the way you had in mind, but you adapt to it and you become pleasantly persistent, even when things don't go to plan. Right. Does that tie into what you were going to share there? Or?
That's exactly right. And, you know, I think as we go to meetings or workshops or presentations, you know, if someone's a guest or they're just attending as a prospect of the presenter or the company, you know, their mindset is they're sitting there going, impress me. You know, you could have problems with the wireless lavalier mic. I mean, there's all kind of hiccups that can happen. There's no such thing as a perfect presentation.
Yeah.
And so many people, they're looking for that perfect video, that perfect podcast. You know, there's a marketing tool that I've been using for 7 months, and it's the most fabulous tool I've ever run across in the history of my being in marketing. And their biggest hurdle is people make a 1-minute video. And they just launched where you can show your picture on your introduction and you can make an audio recording. And that's literally going to be a game changer for those people that have self-esteem or they think they look bad on video and they haven't been able to jump over that hurdle of making a video, that they can make an audio. And so you're right. There it is right there. I didn't know that all of your platforms weren't streaming live, but you know, the word that was grossly overused in 2020 was pivot or shift. You know, you just go with it. I mean, if the fans are screaming and there's a crowd and you got to get on the field and you got to punt the football or 4th down or kick the field goal or whatever, you do your best. And that's just the way it is because they're there. They paid for the ticket. They're watching on TV. They came to see the show. They didn't come to see a perfect presentation. And guess what? The thing about kickers and special teams, no one knows who the long snapper is, who the kicker is, and who the punter is until when? Until they mess up. Then they're like, can you believe that long snapper who snaps the football for the field goals or the punt? Like, oh my gosh, can you believe that Mike Day, he's never had a bad snap in 4 years, and this is the one person, it happened one time. And because he was flawless. He was absolutely flawless. But people in marketing and sales and videos and Zooms, what do we seek? We seek perfection, that we want everything to go well. And, you know, it's just not the case. So thanks for saying that.
Yeah. Well, the definition of perfection, I've got to pull this in because it's so overused. You know, we got to do things perfectly, but it's from the Latin perfecere, which means to perform and to complete. So anytime you finish something that you start, you're doing it perfectly by definition. Now we use it for flawlessness now, and we're yet to have a flawless show, right? We've done over 200 episodes and you have even been called unprofessional in the way that we do things, but it works because we get the message across. What we're trying to do and accomplish is show people in your story what's possible for them, right? And Absolutely. It's not about perfection the way we use it. It's about getting on the field, like you say, and kicking the ball and being terrible at it for a minute, right?
Very true.
Yeah. So as you navigate, when you get into the space of creating something that's never been created before, and you're going into the unknown, and we're going to jump ahead kind of in our journeys here into the unknown, and you're navigating something that's never been there before. You started a program. If you want to talk about it, you can. That was an offshoot, not really an offshoot. It was a creation from things you'd experienced in networking, and you put this together out of the unknown. Right? You didn't have a plan ahead of you that you just got to follow. You had to create it as you stepped. Can you talk about that process of stepping into the unknown? How important is it to create yourself to create that, or is that important? And what is your process and philosophy around stepping into uncertainty?
Well, we want guarantees. We want, if you advertise, you expect to get a return on investment. If you go to a business event, you expect to make 3 or 4 good contacts that will come out of that. There's no guarantees. If you enter a relationship and you're communicative and things are going well, and then it doesn't work out, you think, well, why me? What happened? What was it about me? And then guess what, Ryan, we pull back in, there's that self-esteem issue again, because it didn't work out, or that person didn't become a client, or that event wasn't really as productive as I thought. And, so I think that for me, basically it was in 1993, I drove to Utah for a ski season, and I went to a business group, and I'd been to my first business group in Atlanta, Georgia, where I grew up partially. And one thing I figured, guys, is I could meet people faster through groups than anything else I could do in my life. So matter, and I was a young entrepreneur in my early 20s, but I caught the vision of being around people. It wasn't just going to meetings and events. I caught the vision of being around people. And there's so many solopreneurs, Nick, that, again, here's the ego thing. Their pride gets in the way, and they're egotistical, and they're like, no, I got this. I'm good. I'm successful. Well, let me just ask you a question. Okay. If you make a living because you talk to people on the phone, what if you lost your voice for 6 months? Then what would you do? See, and it's all about the team, people having a team around you. And so if you've ever heard that phrase, you probably have, that ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. And so many people keep seeking knowledge and more knowledge, and I want to learn, but they never implement it. And I'll tell you, because you guys are speakers, I've seen you do trainings and you speak. Do you know what the greatest compliment to a speaker is? What do you think the greatest compliment to a speaker is, Ryan? What would you guess?
They made an impact.
They made an impact. That's true. But here's how they make the best impact. If you're teaching someone something and you see them at the grocery store, you run into them 3 weeks later, or they send you a text and say, oh my gosh, man, Nick, Ryan, that strategy you taught in your book and that strategy you taught in our live training, the 12-step program, like, oh my gosh, I started doing it in my business. I've increased my revenue by 23% in just 90 days. That's the greatest compliment to a speaker or a trainer, is that you implement actually what they taught you. Right. And so what I teach in my class, I have a training called The Art of Conversation, because most people suck at networking. They suck at conversations. And yes, in my personal life, I'm a total introvert. People think because I speak up on stage or in front of 150 people, like, oh my gosh, she's like, I couldn't lead a silent prayer, guys, 30 years ago. I mean, I'm just telling you, I couldn't do it. And I went to Toastmasters for years. I went to 3 different Toastmasters groups to learn how to overcome that, to be a better presenter and speaker. But again, it was working on me. So I turned back to your inner self. We're our own worst critic. And I just had an aha moment. I was dating a gal, and I went public with this. I put it on my YouTube channel, and she ended things with me, and she goes, Dan, I just got tired of you telling me that you didn't deserve someone like me. And Nick, we had that conversation. It was just like, it was self-sabotaging for me. And for 35 years, I've done that in my life. And I'm like, you know what? I had resolve. That was the day that I had resolve of what I learned when I was 22 years old, that you're going to see me dead on the side of the mountain, or you're going to see me at the top. Because if I start climbing the mountain, I'm not coming back. And I haven't had resolve with that personal issue in my life, Nick, in over 35 years. And it changed. It changed 60 days ago. It completely changed. And so my confidence level went through the roof of confidence, not arrogance, that, you know what, I am worthy of this. And I owe that to a previous gal I was in a relationship with.
I love that. The introversion, extraversion, outroversion, whatever you call it, ambiversion, all of it. We identify ourselves as these things. We say, I am introverted, and we act as though that is who we are. Yet here we go out in public and we're on stage or we're in front of a sales presentation and we kill it. We crush it because we have different facets of ourselves. I think for the most part, myself, I prefer introversion. But I love getting on a stage and teaching people. I love getting in front of an audience and teaching people. I love doing the show.
You and I are identical. We are so identical like this. It's just, it's scary how identical we are. It's called, Nick, is it's called a situational introvert or extrovert. It depends on the situation that you're in.
Correct.
So typically typically at church, I sit in the back 5 to 10 rows. It's just how I am. When I go somewhere, I typically will sit in the back or the middle. But if it's a business event, I shift, I'll sit closer to the front. But in my personal life, it's like I'm a different person. It's like I'm a small
like Jekyll and Hyde,
and I'm a giant in the business world.
But you're not. Yeah, it's just honoring where you're at, and that's part of just acceptance. Is just you are where you are. But when it comes to introversion, somebody, I look at Ryan. Ryan's pretty extroverted. As a preference, he energizes himself around people. I recharge when I'm alone. But when it comes to the world of networking and growing your business, like you say, a lot of solopreneurs, they self-isolate and they get on an island and they don't have the network that an extrovert would have. Whereas the extrovert's on the continent, they're out there exploring and navigating. And I could see the importance of being in a scenario of referral marketing, where if you have a lack in an area, let's say that you're introverted, you can supplement in a way with somebody else's extroversion. You can meet people. Does that make sense?
That's really good.
Okay,
really good.
Every now and again, Danny
rewind the video to 27 minutes and go play that one again and take a note.
Yeah, go ahead and run with that. Like, what came up as you hear that? Because, a lot of times we think, well, I don't have that outgoingness. What would you say to somebody in that situation, and how would you play with that?
Well, it's some of it's self-esteem. I mean, I was at a concert 60 days ago with a friend of mine that I ski with, and he's just incredible. And he was like the school comedian. And there was 2 girls standing behind us in line to buy hats and T-shirts after. And he goes, Dan, those girls are really cute. And I said, great, do your thing, talk to them. And he goes, it's so easy. And I'm like, for you, it's easy. And he goes, just watch. And he turns and, he's just charismatic. And I'm going to send him this video so he'll know. But
yeah.
And so we're kind of walking, they all buy hat or T-shirt, and then we're kind of walking out. And so they exchange numbers. And he goes, you see how easy that was? And I'm going, that is so easy for you. I would rather eat mulch than ask for it. It's just, and he goes, man, you're so charismatic. How could you not do that? And then Nick, we were at a mutual friend's wedding Friday night, and I saw, it was like a reunion for me. I saw people I hadn't seen in years, and someone I'd never met that has a lot of mutual friends came up to me and said, are you Dan Rawls? And I was like, yeah. And she said, I'd love for you to meet my husband and this. And so, but what's easy for you, Nick, because you speak, you're on video, you do all this, you make an impact, you wrote a book, they think you're Mr. Extrovert. Well, you and I share that. We're just identical twins in that sense. So from
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, and I would be Danny DeVito.
So what I say is that there's a book by a lady named Susan Rowan called How to Work a Room. And I actually had a phone conversation with her about 60 days ago. I met her about 12 years ago at a conference. She was a speaker. And I went up to her after that conference, and a bunch of us went to Panera Bread after that night for dinner and just spent 2 hours with her talking. And I said, Susan, you made such an impact on me. We used to buy your audio cassettes, How to Work a Room, by the cases, and we would give them out to our leaders and our people. How to Work a Room. You can find her on social media or Amazon or Facebook. She wrote the book on how to work a room when it comes to going to events. And that one audio cassette, Nick, it changed my whole trajectory, because most people, when they go to an event, what's their number one goal? They're looking at their watch going, what time they have to leave. That's their number one goal. It's not who can I meet. And the second thing they do, Ryan, is what do? They gravitate to the one person at the event that they know, and they talk to them 90% of the event.
Yeah.
Right.
Rather than saying, hey, Nick, could you tell me one or two people here in this room that I should meet? And then she updated the book years ago with smartphone pitfalls. She calls it Call Rude when Call Waiting came out many years ago, and then now it's called Text Rude. Oh, excuse me, just a second, guys. I need to. You're at an event and you're like, she calls it Text Rude. But
hold on, guys. I'm going to pause the show and I got to take.
I got a text.
So she's updated, but it's things like that. It's sure, Dale Carnegie's a timeless book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. But the book, How to Work a Room, if you really want to learn how to work a room at a networking event, she is the master on how to do it. And, coming back to that, I just have to say this, because I have this sitting here on my table, and this is a rhino. Okay. You can see that. This is a rhino. And just July of 2023, I had the privilege of taking my son to South Africa. And if you scroll back in social media, you'll see a post on LinkedIn and Facebook that I did about my emotional attachment to Africa, because my aunt was a foreign official there. Well, I never got to go. And there's this book called Rhinoceros Success. You can find it. It was just updated. They have an Audible version, but there's a second and a third version. And I'm not the guy to recommend a book. I'm that last guy, because frankly, Nick, Ryan, I've read very few books. I listen to things more on audio. But this is the book that changed my life. And what you realize is you'll learn this in the book, but there's two kinds of people. There's rhinos and there's cows, and that's it. It's nothing about skills or anything else. But then you realize you're either a small rhino or you're a big rhino. And I bought this and carried this in my carry-on suitcase. It's 29 pounds. This is amazing. But for us to go on the safari and
you're okay to use the term small and giant.
Okay, that's a good one. Look at that. Yep. Boom, right there.
Yep.
For me, it was so emotional on the safari, sitting there in the Land Cruiser with other guests, and we're literally maybe 15 to 18 yards of 3 rhinos just sitting there, and just I just got emotional personally. No one really saw that, and no one knew the impact, but it was the book from 30 years ago.
Amazing.
It's such a simple thing, Nick, that really the giants and smalls. And I was so excited about sharing that today with your listeners and viewers, because it's not a current book, but it's timeless information. And I'm just telling you, if you're stuck in a spot, I lost my rhino. I really lost the rhino in me. I went through some life changes. My whole family's deceased. It could be all woe me. I went through a divorce after 20 years. My mom and dad and brother and sister, my whole immediate family's deceased. It's supposed to happen that way for the youngest in the family, but you don't expect it happening at 50 years old, 51.
Right.
But, again, your book made an impact on me. Giants and smalls, go be a giant. You're not going to be a giant in every category of your life: dating, public speaking, networking, building a business. You can't be good at everything. So become a master at a few things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's recognizing, Townsend Warlow, I went through his training program, and he put in an analogy of weeding the yard. He says, you've got this beautiful yard, and from a distance you look at it and it's all green and it's mowed and everything's good. But when you come into it, you find all these weeds in there, and you start pulling these weeds. Right. And then you find out that you get pretty good at pulling the weeds. So the yard is mostly grass, but there are still weeds. So the game becomes finding the weeds. So you start looking through all this grass to find the weeds in your life, and you start removing those or improving the lawn, so to speak. And when it comes to giants and smalls, or the rhino, big rhino, little rhino, it's about looking at those areas of your life where you feel insignificant and insecure, and not using it as a crutch, but as an opportunity to play and grow that into giantness if you choose to do so, right? The giants and the smalls isn't an analogy of groups of people. It's an analogy of what we do to ourselves in our inner world about who we think we are. We play small in some areas, we play giant in others. I could go around saying, oh, I'm an introvert, I can't do that. And it would be true because of my statement, I can't do that because, and I'd have some justification for it. So when you look at this book that inspired you, and you're in South Africa and you're moved because you're remembering your rhino or your giant, we have so many reasons to stay small. We don't have reasons for being giant. Like, where are the justifications for being a giant in your life? I should be a giant because I put a post up the other day. Good people should have riches so that they can do more good things in the world. And I can't believe the number of statements that came out that said, this is why we don't do that. This is why we don't pursue greatness, right? We stay small because of this. And it was like, wow, it's reaffirming to see people's limiting views of the world of like, I'm limited around money because, or I'm limited around this because, and we have all these justifications. Where are your justifications for being a giant? That was a rant.
Well, people will give their justification. They'll give their justification for being a small,
right?
Maybe not a giant like you want them to. And, you know, when you talked about the weeds, I just want to share one of my 20 favorite quotes from Jim Rohn. I met Jim Rohn in person when I was 22 years old, and literally he became a mentor for millions of people. And I was one of those. But he said, if you don't tend to your garden, eventually the weeds will grow. Not to think so is naive. And so as I'm listening to you share that, Jim's quote just popped into my head that, you know, we keep doing the same thing. But for those of you that are older, maybe you built a business or you achieved some success in your past, I guarantee you, because I'm waving my hand, I've gotten away from what I used to do and what I once knew. Yeah. With all the distractions and social media and everything else versus just the grind of picking up the phone and calling and meeting with people to go build authentic relationships. Yeah. Wow. And those authentic relationships are part of the nurturing that's around us. You know, I did a video this morning, a live this morning on a seed being planted and how the seed reaches out. And part of reaching out is not only the nutrients that surround it, but it reaches further than that. It'll pull in water and other things that are in its environment to help it grow. And part of our growth comes from other people. Like, part of my healing has been around having people in my life that I can reach out to that help me to feel empowered again, that help me to look upward, that help me to grow. Right. And when it comes to referral networking and marketing, that's really what it is you're taking those parts of you that are feeling insignificant. You're finding people that have what you want and you're pulling in the nutrients from them. You're not a parasite. Does that make sense? Absolutely. Right. And there are parasites that are useful. Sharks have little fish that swim around and clean them, and they allow it because it's useful. But you're pulling in nutrients from these people. You're uplifting yourself because of who these people are in the world, like Jim Rohn, right? Yeah, no question about it. What does that bring up as you hear that when it in reference to referral marketing? Does that matter? Is there a reason people should reach out? I mean, I gave my version, but what do you think on that? Well, I think it's, you know, when I think of referral marketing and I think of just this grossly overused word called networking, a lot of people think they're networking. And again, full transparency, 30 years ago, I couldn't network my way out of a brown paper bag. I mean, I was just randomly going to meetings, exchanging business cards with people, making an effort to get to know people. And, you know, you don't want to be that person that is needy as creepy, you know, because people can sense that if you come across, Ryan, as needy as creepy, that, you know, you're needy, you know, my kids aren't going to eat next week if you don't buy my product or my service or sign and become a new client. And, you know, there's an art to networking and people don't take the time to learn how to do it. And if I can just kind of stay at the yield sign, as you said, a rant, you know, for me, I'm just a big believer of follow-up, Nick. And it's just, I try to pour into people and just tell them, because I go to events. And so please don't judge me if you see me at a lot of events, but I go to events for a different reason than most people. I go to events to reconnect with people from my past. And it happened at the wedding that you and I were at Friday night, Nick. It happened at a concert last night with some friends. But here's the thing. It's like going to Lowe's or Home Depot and buying $100 worth of things to fix 2 or 3 things in your house. And that bag of things sits in your garage and it just sits there for 6 months.
We all have them. We all have like little Home Depot bags in our garage.
Right. So here's the deal. Return those items and call a handyman, because you're not going to fix it. But why am I giving you that analogy? Because people keep going to events and networking events and speed networking events and all these events where there's speakers and trainers and they want to meet more people. And they're pathetic at following up. It's just, it blows me away. And I teach this. I mean, I'd love to brand this and y'all pay me to just travel the world to teach this, because I lived it. I built a business with a small team of people to 8,000 people cumulatively over many years, and then sold that. That was one business, but I'm still in my other business. But the bottom line is people don't know how to follow up. And so they don't. They don't follow up. And the 1 or 2 people that they do, they try to hard sell them their goods or services or their coaching programs or whatever. It's just, and people are just spent on that, guys. They're done with that. But I mean, I could teach for hours about how to follow up, why to follow up, the fortunes in the follow up. The analogy is they keep going and going and going to meet more people, Ryan, just like they went to the home improvement store and they bought those things thinking they're going to fix those things in their house. They're not going to fix the things. And call a timeout and go through text messages from a year ago. I mean, there's so many strategies I could teach here, but that's some of my secret sauce, from email strategies to text strategies, something I teach my groups every December to do for that previous year. And it creates instant activity for people. And people will pay you for your knowledge. But you know what? I mean, I feel like for me, Nick, Ryan, and this is just a humble comment, nobody in the world follows up like I do. Nobody. And I'm not that aggressive salesperson because I don't like asking for the sale, but I will follow up with people. And because I've learned how to be pleasantly persistent, not that I'm selling anything per se, but people are like, oh, you're always so good about reaching out every 6 to 8 or 12 or 24 months, Dan. Like, how do you do that? It's like, because I care, because I care, because I want to do it. I want to get better. But here's the thing, guys. You can't impart to others what you don't possess yourself. I have no authority speaking with people with my passion of follow-up if I'm not willing to do it myself. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever heard this, Nick, because you and I've been in different circles over the years, but my definition of a motivational speaker is they've got a great talk, because people are like, man, Dan's really inspirational. He's motivational. He gets me fired up. But you know what? My definition of a motivational speaker, not the ones that you know probably, but they have a great talk. It's amazing, but it's easier to get a new audience than a new talk. And the thing is they wouldn't dare go teach 80% of what they teach, or they wouldn't dare go do 80% of what they teach. And you can't impart to others what you don't possess yourself. I learned that in my early 20s.
I sometimes wonder if I should have picked another topic to teach on, because I keep going through the lessons of the 12 journeys. It's like, holy shit, dude, this is challenging. And I look at what you talk about there. Of when you don't have something, first you want to create in yourself the desire to have that thing. And then you want to build that within yourself. And then you want to share that with others from what you have. And it's an expression from you. So when I look at what we've done with the Giants and the 12 journeys, is I've had to become that. And it's mattered so much to me that it becomes an expression out here. Right.
Absolutely.
Without that, I'd just be talking the talk. But I'm in here doing the work just like the people that are going through our programs are doing the work, right? Ryan is too. And so I think that's the distinction, is create it in yourself first to express it out in the world. Like, so start in here.
That's right.
Well, that desire there. Yeah.
Because when you do that, don't you think you're more believable and relatable?
Well, yeah, because it's coming from who you are, not what you're saying. It's not some external thing you put on. You're not.
That's why you'll never, ever, ever hear me say the two buzzwords that are sweeping the world right now: 10x and scale. And for people that know me, for people that know me in my world, I despise those two phrases.
Yeah.
Show me 50 people. Yeah. So Ryan, show me 20 people that you know that have 10x their business in 12 months. It's 1 in a million, my friend.
That I know.
It's so unrealistic. But yeah,
unless they were doing nothing and just kind of did like stepped off the couch, you know, like, but
we did. We 10x'd our RV business, but now it's going out of business.
Yeah. So but then from now, like if now we were trying to 10x our business from where we are right now, that type of growth, that's unreal. Like, I don't know, like, it's not even attainable. But it would take a lot longer than 12 months to 10x.
Let me share with you what I learned from the president of one of the companies that I've worked with. I've been with the company 35 years.
Yeah.
He said, our goal is to have double-digit growth, because if we can have double-digit growth, like 18 to 20% a year, every year, do you realize every 5 years, we'll double our business in 5 years? Would you rather do that or get caught up in the hype of going and seeing some speaker talk about scaling and 10xing?
Now that seems doable.
Yeah.
And now you can go like implement small changes repeated daily over time that create complexity and massive growth.
I want to play with this for a minute, because we do teach that. We teach, giants still take small steps. They're just bigger. And I've got coaches in my network that say, do massive, ridiculous offers, because there's a version of that too. Like, go out there and take massive action toward your dream. And my view on this is that both work, because you can take small steps and that creates complexity over time and it's consistent. But there are people that go out and do big things, and even if they don't reach the big thing, they've still stretched so far beyond where they were that their life is impacted. So as a growth model, we see that in both ways. We see like bamboo grow in weeks. It grows hundreds of feet in the air, but it takes all this time underneath where it's been creating itself first to be able to do that. Right. So it still comes back to, you got to create yourself so that you can either take small steps towards your goal or take that massive action, but you've got something to fall back with. Right. It's not like you're just taking massive action, and if it doesn't go, you're gone. You're toast.
That's correct.
Does that make sense? Like the 10x thing, I can see the value of stretching that far, where that would push somebody to stretch that far, to have that idea or that construct of how big could I take this and go for it. But they need to be prepared on the inside that if it doesn't go the way they thought, that they can land somewhere. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I mean, it's the concept of shooting for the moon and the stars,
Right.
If you shoot for the moon, you'll hit some stars, but you have to aim and shoot somewhere. And so, sorry about the rant there, Ryan, but I just get really passionate because I see all these speakers and people talking about scaling, and I'm like, you've never scaled anything. Why are you trying to teach other people how to scale something when you don't have a duplicatable business? If you get disabled, if you're in a car accident, if you lose your voice, you're out of business, buddy. So you need to stop. You're not an authoritative figure teaching people how to duplicate their business because you haven't done it. Why should I listen to you? Right. And that's why I'm a believer of documentation beats conversation, guys. We can give conversation all day long, but can you document it? A friend of mine, Chad, he's been in the restaurant business his whole life. He said, Dan, I've hosted networking groups at my restaurants for over a decade. And it's a lot of it's they're entrepreneurs, they're solopreneurs, they're entrepreneur wannabes. They want to scale their business. They want to build a big business, but they don't have a sellable business. He said 95% of the people that I know don't have a sellable business, even though they're an entrepreneur. That's not scaling to the extent that they think they want that. And so here's a question that you have to throw into this, not to really discuss it, but is what you're doing duplicatable, and are you worth duplicating? You see, when people come to my training, if they come to my class for 3 hours, they're going to walk out of the room and they're going to be able to implement today at Target or the gas station what I teach them. The art of conversation, how to have generic conversations. Hey, just out of curiosity, that's called an opener, how to open more conversations with that, because I'm an introvert, y'all, but I know how to have conversations in a business setting. And don't you think more people need that? We can keep meeting more people and keep going to Home Depot and Lowe's and getting the stuff to fix stuff, Ryan. But if we don't learn, we're not going to stop and take the time to do the home improvement things.
And stop looking for bread at Home Depot.
Amen.
Amen.
You know, it's kind of like the person that says, oh, I can't go to Nick's class. I can't. Could you take notes for me? You know, Zig Ziglar traveled the world. But like, oh, I can't make it to the success seminar. You know, when Zig Ziglar and Peter Lowe and all those guys would, Les Brown, they would come to town and like, oh man, I just can't make it. I've got an appointment. I said, look, if you're not going to make $3,000, shift your schedule and come to this appointment. Oh, could you just take notes for me? Right. Could you just go to that networking event, Ryan, and make some contacts for me and then tell me how it went and give me a couple of contacts? No, you have to learn how to work a room.
That becomes the rescue. We hope to be rescued from things. You know, in the book, I put in there in the song, you know, that the Small sings. He puts in there, turn around and rescue me. And he was thinking it from the small mindset, you know, that giants rescue, but he finds out later that he's already a giant. He's got to grow into it. And as you could go around saying, you know, I'm an introvert. I need somebody to rescue me from my introversion by bringing me people that I can talk to. But even if they brought them, you wouldn't be prepared to talk with them because you're an introvert.
Right.
And so we get in these justifications and excuses of not being things, and we hope to be rescued from our current situation. But Nathaniel Brandon says no one is coming to save you. And that can feel really hopeless to somebody that wants to be rescued.
Wow.
How do you work around that introversion, right? Like you're saying here, is I could go around telling the world I'm an introvert, and I would have the excuse that introverts don't talk to people. And other people would say, oh, I know what an introvert is. He doesn't have to talk to people.
Very true.
They could hold me in that space.
Hmm.
What would you say to them?
I mean, that's a valid point. I mean, that's so true, because we try, you can't work from the reverse of an idea.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to be driving this 1987 Ford Pinto, you know, or whatever. I don't want to be driving this station wagon still. That was my first car. Or I don't want to be living where I'm living. You know, that's working from the reverse of an idea. You have to paint a picture and create a vision of where you think you want to be. And one of the things I've tried to instill in my son is the freedom of being an entrepreneur and, you know, creating a lifestyle, not necessarily working 70 hours a week all the time and having no life. It's about having work-life balance and having to do that. And I've made my fair share of mistakes in that world too. But you know, work's overrated. I mean, we all have to work, but if you don't have intra and interpersonal relationships, you'll suffocate. And I know that because I poured 25 years of my life and it cost me the most valuable relationship I had.
Yeah. Yeah. We're wired for social connection. And when we don't have it, then people suffer. And what you're talking about with referral marketing is creating those social connections.
Yeah, and absolutely. So before we end, whatever you want to do to wrap up, I just want to let you know, I have something that's short and sweet to read, and it's called Decide to Connect. So whenever you get to that point, just allow me enough time to share that.
I say yes. I say share away, rocket fire.
So it's called Decide to Connect. Use every letter you write or every email or text you send, every voice message you leave, every conversation you have, every meeting you attend to express your fundamental beliefs and dreams. Affirm to others the vision of the world that you want. Connect through thought, connect through action, connect through love, connect through the spirit. You are the center of the world. You are free. Immensely powerful source of life and goodness. Affirm it, spread it, and radiate it. Think day and night about it, and you will see a miracle happen, the greatness of your own life. In a world of big powers, social media, monopolies, but billions of individuals connecting is the new freedom, the new democracy, a new form of happiness. And never in the history of the world have we ever been connected to so many people, but yet so disconnected. And I'll share with you, Ryan, there's a book called Making Room for Life that one of my small groups at church many years ago, we read that. And there's a chapter in that book called Crowded Loneliness. And I just resonate on that chapter that, we can know lots of people, but yet at the end of the day, how few people are we really connected to that we have a relationship with.
That's beautiful, Dan. You know what I love about, network marketing, referral marketing, affiliate marketing, whatever you call it, whatever somebody wants, the direct sales, all of those types of things, they're a relationship business. They're a people business. And Robert Kiyosaki, I think it was Robert Kiyosaki that talked about it has typically a lower point of entry, but the people that you can surround yourself with in that arena and get experience in a hurry that doesn't cost you millions of dollars to learn and 20 years of ups and downs in the business world. There's a low point of entry, and so that's probably what, there's no floor, no ceiling, and so there's a lot of people that go in and go out because of that. But it is the best place to get an education, and if you'll dive in and invest and hop in with people like Dan, like anybody, you name Zig Ziglar. There's so many amazing trainers and people in that world that if you'll immerse yourself in that world, that you can come out with just a black belt of an education in a short period of time and learn these tools that can have massive, massive impact for the rest of your life. And Nick's having a little bit of audio connective issues too here, and we can pull him in and wrap up here in a second too. But my education, a lot of it came from that arena. I got to be in front of and surround myself with people that were giants. So when I found the giants and the smalls, when I found Nick Smith, it was a natural gravitation. It resonated, it hit, because I had already looked up and I saw giants, and I learned that principle to surround yourself with those people so that they could help you avoid a bunch of the pitfalls. They knew what it took already to become a giant. Find a Dan Rawls in your life. Go spend some time with him. Go invest some money and some time and energy, because you're worth it. It's worth it. And you'll find yourself growing in a hurry if you do what they say. Even an introvert, right? That is in the people business can find these tools and resources and build a massive business and have a huge impact in the world like you have, Dan. Is there anything else, Dan, that you'd want to share that's on your heart, in your mind, to share today?
I would just say connect with me on LinkedIn for starters, or Facebook, wherever. And, if I can be a service to you or help, I meet people through groups. So that's my passion is, occasionally I meet with people one-on-one, but if I do, I always overlap appointments. That's just a strategy that I have. So, I'll talk to anybody and have a conversation with that. But, you pay people for their knowledge, you pay people for their success. And, that's whenever I've seen speakers, I've always hung around till everybody left, and I've talked to them. I've offered to take them to lunch. I've offered to take them to the airport when they're flying back home. And, people have taught me how to do that over the years. And so, again, you can't impart to others what you don't possess yourself. And if someone possesses something, a skill, a mindset, an attitude, there's this guy, Sean, that I met 8 months ago, and he's introduced me to 16 people. They're not all doing business with me, and I don't stay connected to all of them, but he's introduced me to 16 people. And you just don't know who someone knows. And if you cultivate that relationship and you follow up and you're thankful for that, it's not just leading somebody to somebody else. So I'm grateful to have been on your show. And, understanding that what Nick said, being connected with the right people is so important. It's not about continuing to go to events and events and events. It's about meeting the right people. People know people, and those people know more people, and you'll never meet all the people that I know unless you make an effort to get to know me or her or him. And Nick knows a lot of people, but you have to make an effort to get. And again, I'm not talking about being needy as creepy. I'm saying, genuinely speaking, some people are like, what are you working on? How could I help you? And then I respond and I said, who do I need to meet through you? Tell me 3 solid business owners that need some direction and guidance. That's who I need to meet. So that's what I would say. Send me a personal message, engage with me personally. I love introducing people to other people. It's just I can't turn it off, Ryan. It's just, it's just, I'm at a concert last night, always thinking about with dancing with friends. And then afterwards talking to some people, someone came up to me and goes, hey, we've never met, but I think I know you. And so I'm like, hey, pull it up. We had 70 mutual connections. And so, you just never know about who you're going to meet, but if you have an interest, you have to cultivate that. And I'll close with this. Remember this, y'all. You're either blending in or you're standing out. You're either blending in or you're standing out. And so change your mindset of going to events and say, you know what? I'm sick and tired of getting average results. I make a few sales. I make a new contact every now and then here and there. But you need to stand out and follow up with the people that you meet. Not that you're going to sell them something or schedule an appointment with them. Everything's not going to be a fruitful connection for you. But stop blending in with everybody else and start standing out and doing something different. That's what makes me different. Is I learned the phrase 30 years ago, the fortune's in the follow-up. And it's not just about financial. It's about great things. I mean, I've met people at events that I water ski with. I've been on their houseboat with them and vice versa. They've been on my houseboat, different things, because I followed up with them. I didn't expect them to follow up with me, but had I not cultivated that, then it doesn't happen. And so my wish for you is that you'll do something different to your listeners and your audience to become a bigger giant than you are. And I gave you the analogies of the rhinos, okay? But just be different, Ryan. That's the thing. Still be yourself, but stand out and do something that most people aren't willing to do. And it's simple. It's so simple, Ryan. Most people aren't willing to follow up. And so be different.
Yep. Yeah, just like in the giants and the smalls, the small just went out on a different path. He just separated himself from the rest, and that made all the difference as he traveled down that other path. And so as you're traveling down your path and doing something different, find Dan, because I know the giant that he is, and the connectivity that he will introduce you to. And even if it doesn't directly benefit him in business, he will connect you to the right person that is there for you. I know that about Dan. He's a connector of people. He is a giant. We're so grateful, Dan, that you were on our show today. And I appreciate all that you are in the world. For those of you that are watching at home, you're right on time. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Continue to do those things that will stretch you and help you to grow as a giant. We love you. Make it a giant day, and we'll catch you on the next video. Love you.